Hey everyone, what's up and welcome to another review video. In today's video I'm going to be reviewing this, which is the Aeroband MIDI guitar. Yes, that's another MIDI guitar. Very similar to the Enya Cyber G and the Lava Genie, although very different because we've got actual strings down here, some not so strings up here, but it does look much more similar to a real guitar. It is MIDI however, so it works in a DAW, also works standalone, and it's got an app. I'm going to be doing a bit more of a deep dive into all the features, including what I like about it, what I think can be improved. So let's have a look at what's inside the box first. My lovely little assistant Gizmo is here to help open up the box. As you can see, it comes really well packaged. There's also two colour options, black or white. I have the black one inside here. You will also find some extras for the MIDI guitar. This is a USB-C cable you can use for charging and connecting to your computer. Got some very nice looking guitar picks also. You'll also find a tool which is for adjusting the tension in the strings and changing them. There's also stickers for chords and a blank sheet to write your own custom ones, which is quite handy. It's a 1-year warranty and user manual also included. This is the main body of the guitar. It's pretty sleek looking, more of a dark grey silver than black. At the top is where you connect the fretboard. On the side here are multifunction buttons, on off, volume control, mic input and headphone output. You can connect a guitar strap here. It doesn't come with one however. There's also jack output, USB-C and a built-in speaker down here. This bit is the mute bar. These bits are magnetic and pop off quite easily if you need to change the strings. It says they're unlikely to break, but in the event that they do, you can buy some replacement strings from Aeroband. On the fretboard part, there's buttons for pitch, which are called Capo, and a tone button to change the instrument. There's silicone strings here. It's pretty sturdy. The button here at the back is what I've had a bit of a difficulty with. It's great that these two parts come separately, so it makes it really easy to travel with. However, as you'll see in just a second, I've had a little bit of difficulty getting them to come apart again. So I've got the Aeroband MIDI guitar set up and ready to go. To turn it on, you're just going to click this top button in for 2 seconds and it turns on. Got some nice LED lights here on the side, which will also be your battery indicator if you press that on-off button again, which is very handy. You can also just turn it off using the same method to turn it on, and that will turn it off. That on-off button is also your volume control, so you can turn this as a dial. It's pretty solid feeling, and then it goes very loud. The speakers down here at the bottom, pretty loud, very decent sound. Let's turn that back down. Right next to it, we've got a mic control button. So you can plug in a microphone using a 1/4-inch jack, but if you don't have that plugged in, this control will actually control the drum beat that will play if you've got a drum beat looping, which you have some presets available in the guitar. Next to that, we also have the headphone output. If you want to do a 1/4-inch jack out, traditionally like you would on a guitar, that's also here on the bottom. So what makes this guitar very different from the other two that I've reviewed is that it's very much more like a traditional guitar setup. We've got some steel strings down here, and there's 6 of them. So as a default, it's going to be in standard tuning, which is E, A, D, G, B, E. You don't have to tune the guitar, which is great because it's all digital. It's always going to be in tune. You can also, in the app, change the tuning and do any customization that you want, which is amazing. The great thing about this being a digital guitar is that it also works as MIDI. So where that jack output is, there's also USB-C, which you can connect to your computer and use it as a MIDI input for any DAW that can receive MIDI. It works in Ableton Live, which is what I use. Got the 6 steel strings here. Up at the top is the fretboard. So it's 22 frets. It's like a standard fretboard. I feel like the frets are maybe a little bit closer together, so it's kind of more like a short scale. These are silicone and they don't move, so they're not strings, but they're kind of like pads which will respond to you playing in the correct position on the fret. They feel very similar to like nylon strings if you've ever played a nylon acoustic guitar before. But the great thing about having this fretboard laid out like this is that if you're familiar with playing guitar, this is going to feel exactly the same for you. So you can do all your standard chords. The only thing that I've been getting used to is having to use the mute bar down here. So this mute bar will stop any of the sound playing, but you can also do palm muting with it. If I was normally going to be muting stuff, if I'm playing on a real guitar, I would just place my whole palm on either the strings down here or on the fretboard. But for this, you just have to make sure you hit the mute bar down here. You can also do palm mute with this, which is very cool. You just have to make sure that your hand is in contact with the mute bar whenever you're doing palm muting, and then it works. Not really any noticeable latency. That palm muting works basically like how it would if you were palm muting on an actual guitar, so that's great. We've got a couple more buttons up here at the top, which include these capo buttons. So we've got plus and minus, which will change the pitch of the guitar. So if I play here, that's our standard tuning. If I do +1, it will put a capo here on the first fret essentially, so everything will be pitched up half a step. You'll also see on these LED lights, it will indicate where you are, which is very handy if you're not sure. So now it's going to play. That's a great feature. We also have a bunch of different tones available on the guitar, so you can cycle through them using this tone button. You again will get the LED lights here on the side, which will show you which tone you're currently playing. So if you wanted to make it sound like you're playing a piano on a guitar, if you want to turn on single chord touch, so auto mode basically where you can just press one thing and it's going to do a chord, you're going to press and hold the tone button. And now, if I just play one thing, and there's a bunch of different ones that again you can customize in the app. If you want to turn on a drum beat, so you have a drum beat to practice along to, you can do that by just pressing the microphone dial in. And you can adjust the tempo using those capo buttons. So we can go faster or slower. To turn off the drum beat, you just have to press that again. If you want to change the drum beat, you can do that using the tone button. And again, the LED lights on the side are going to change to show you which position you're in. Let's hear how the audio sounds directly using the jack output. So in the app, I've turned on the hammer on, pull off and slide functions, which are not available as a default, which will make this playing a little bit more realistic, although it's not capable of doing pitch bend or vibrato at the moment, but hammer-ons definitely help with being able to play it more like a real guitar. app is super easy to connect. You can get it on your phone or your iPad. It's available on iOS or in the Google Play Store, but you can also get it on desktop. The desktop version, I would say, is a little bit harder to use. Sometimes it doesn't all fit in the box, but the phone app is great. Connected using Bluetooth. It's super easy to connect via Bluetooth. You just press here and then it connects pretty quickly. In here, you've got a bunch of different options. So you can see your guitar tones. You can select them here. You've got your easy chord shapes, which you can adjust if you have that in auto mode. You can adjust the BPM here. So if you're not quite getting it right with the tempo buttons, you can adjust the BPM in the app so you can get it more precise. If you want to change your loop time signature, you can do that in the app as well. So we can have 3/4, 6/8. If you go into the settings menu, this is where you're going to find additional settings. So technique, I've turned on hammer on, pull off and slide. I do find the slide sounds quite digital, like it doesn't sound like the articulation could definitely be a bit better on it. You also have the option to change what the mute bar down here does. So instead of it just doing mute, you can do stroke. You can have it so it does nothing. String settings is where you can adjust the velocity and sensitivity of the strings. Because I've turned on hammer on, it does say you might need to adjust the sensitivity settings because you might get some unwanted notes playing. So you can just turn the sensitivity down on those quite easily in the app. Special tuning is where you can change the tuning. There's a few different settings you can do which are already set. So for example, open G or drop D or DAD, GAD, these are quite common tunings that you might have encountered before. If you wanted to, however, do your own special tuning where you select each of the strings yourself, you can do that as well. I'm going to scroll down to custom tuning, select what each of the string tuning is going to be. So I'm going to select here C, and then second string is G. It's quite an unusual tuning. And then we've got G again. Fourth string is a C, G, another C. And then if I hit save, we've got that special tuning. With this tuning, I'm also going to put a capo onto the 5th fret. So let's use the capo button. It's a little confusing with the capo situation. So normally I would play this. But because we have the capo setting on and I don't have a physical capo, I actually have to play it up here, which is a little bit confusing. If I'm doing the pull off, to the open string, it's got open string hammer on, but it doesn't have open string pull off. So I have to play the string, which again is a bit confusing. So I can't really play the track like I would if I was playing it on an acoustic guitar. Hopefully that's something that they can add in a firmware update, because I feel like if you can do a open to hammer on, you should be able to do a pull off to open string. There's loads of other features in the app which are going to be great if you're learning how to play. So on the songs tab, for example, there's a bunch of different tracks and it will show you how to play them using different chords and stuff. You've got tutorials here as well, so if you wanted to do like a beginner guitar course, you can do that in here. So connecting this to MIDI, all you have to do is plug in that USB-C cable, attach it into your computer, and then in Ableton, it's super simple to set up. Go into my settings and you just want to make sure you're on your MIDI tab, that you've got it selected so that the guitar is sending MIDI information in. Once you do that, you see it will start to send in MIDI information, and then you can put whatever VST you want. One thing to note is that it will still play the guitar sounds, so you do have to mute that if you don't want that to come through. So just turn the volume off on the actual guitar itself, and then it will just trigger the MIDI. The only annoying thing that I find about it is that it kind of sustains the note. So unless you hit the mute bar, it's going to keep sustaining the note. So I just got news from Aeroband that they fixed some of the sustain issues with MIDI to computer in the latest firmware update. So I've updated the guitar and tested it out. There have been some improvements to the sustain. So for example, if I was to play an A chord without the open A string, no sustain. Same with the D chord. No sustain. However, if I was going to add in the open A string, see it's still sustaining that A. And now it's still sustaining the D with the D chord. So those two are going to sustain until I either hit the mute bar or I mute the strings with my left hand. This is going to be a little bit awkward sometimes with certain chords. If you're playing bar chords, it's kind of all right because you would kind of mute those notes anyway with your left hand by just double hitting the strings. But if you have a chord with an open string in it, that sustain's going to carry on. So like with a bar chord, you can just mute that quite easily with your left hand. If you're playing solos and stuff, that's going to be fine because you're moving along the fretboard. So like, you're playing notes all the time on the strings, so you're not getting this sustain issue. I did bring this up with Aeroband and they said that because some guitarists have different techniques of playing, maybe some players will want the notes to sustain. It's a bit of a trade-off between what functions they can implement on the guitar. So while they've improved some of the sustain issues, there are still some limitations when it comes to MIDI with this guitar. So here's my final thoughts on the Aeroband MIDI guitar. I think as a MIDI guitar it's great. There's a couple of things that I would say need to be improved on. So the latency is very good, like I'm not really noticing any latency, but the sustain issue where the notes are just sustaining, I think is something that's going to be fixed really. If you're looking to play this, it's quite heavy. This is 2.7 kilograms, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is pretty heavy, and I would say it's maybe on a par with like my Strat guitar. This is in a Strat style form factor, but I wonder if it's maybe the battery and the speaker which are making it so heavy. The battery, once you're using it for quite a while, it does get a little bit hot kind of here at the back. So where it's against your body, it can start to feel a little bit hot and uncomfortable. Saying that, the battery does last for absolute ages. The fact that it's battery powered and it has a speaker makes it great for travel. It lasts something like 10 to 12 hours when it's fully charged, and it's got the fast charging option. So if you have a fast charger, you can charge it in about 4 hours and it'll be a full charge. When it comes to articulation, I think it does an okay job, especially because it's got the strings here. You can adjust the sensitivity settings and stuff like that, but not having a pull off to an open string I think is an issue. There's no harmonics, no vibrato, no string bending. So those are all things that you would normally be used to playing if you're a guitarist. You can, of course, add the option of doing hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides. The slide does sound a little bit unnatural though. So I think articulation is definitely something that needs to be improved upon. So having the steel strings here, I think makes it feel like a real guitar. They are really good quality. I think it says on the website like they're unlikely to break, but if you do need to replace them, you can buy replacement strings and there's a guide online on how to change it. But these are kind of magnetic and they just pick off, and you can see they kind of look like electric guitar strings. You don't have to worry too much about the tension, but I think you can adjust it to your liking. But obviously, because this is always going to be in tune, because the tuning is digital, you don't have to worry about, you know, getting it to the right intonation and stuff like that. I think the fact that it's in a traditional guitar setup, so having the frets and having the 6 strings is a great plus. But I do think if you're going to have strings down here, why not just have strings up here? Like, I don't know, I kind of get it, like my fingers are not hurting. So you can definitely practice on this for a lot longer than you would on a normal guitar. These are silicone, that's obviously why pitch bending doesn't really work, because you can't push these. Maybe in a future iteration of this guitar by Aeroband, they could potentially make these top strings MPE, so you could do like pitch bend and vibrato and stuff. The tones on the guitar are okay, like the acoustic guitar ones I think sound great. The piano one's alright as well. There is a bass sound as well, so if you wanted to play bass on it, you could. The tones could be maybe a little bit better, but you could just have a VST which has a bunch of different guitar sounds. Like I know it works with ample sounds. So if you have a guitar VST and you hook this up, it opens up a whole world of possibilities. Being able to use it as MIDI I think is really cool. Overall, I think Aeroband have done a good job. I do find it a little bit tricky to get this out, which is not great. I think that, you know, speaks to maybe the build quality of that particular part of it. Generally, it feels pretty solid. I think it looks quite nice as well. The speaker's super loud. If you're looking for a portable guitar that you can practice on, something you can stick some headphones into and practice without making any noise and disturbing people around you. It works great as a MIDI guitar into a DAW. If you're new to guitar, I think it's a great way of learning, especially with the app. It's gonna do wonders for, you know, being able to practice without having hurty fingers and having those chord charts and songs in the app, which you can learn really easily. Thanks Aeroband for sending this out for me to test out. Let me know what you guys think. I hope you enjoyed today's session, and as always, until the next time, happy practicing.